my name is Joey Avery.
Yeah, and I'm Stephen Deschanel.
And we're here to talk to you guys a little bit about safety on some general hand tools. Here, I got some hammers. And the first thing you need to know is always wear your safety glasses. Z87 approved. And the difference with those is they have wraparound side eye protection. The first thing when you pick up a hammer is to know what material that you're working with and the type of hammer you're using. First thing you need to check is look at the hammer head itself and see if it's loose in any way, that this one is loose, or if the head itself, the surface of it is cracked or damaged in any way. You don't want to hit two hammers together, two hard surfaces together. They may cause them to splinter apart or shatter, and those shards can be sharp and cause damage to you or people around you. When you're working with machines and just to get nuts loose or bolts loose, use a lead hammer. You shouldn't use a hammer with mushroom heads unless specifically designed so, like these lead hammers. They're used to prying and hitting nuts and bolts loose, and so they have a soft surface. You wouldn't want to use a hardened surface like a claw hammer, and that'll cause them to shatter. And if you're working with adjustments and other materials, use a rubber or wooden mallet. That's not going to cause any damage to the hammer itself or the piece you're working with. That's about what you need to know about hammers.
Alright, here we got some screwdrivers and wrenches. I'm going to start off with different types of wrenches. Here we have your standard, it's a metric Allen wrench set. Basically these are pretty self-explanatory. You just use this, whatever your application is, tighten it, loosen it. You can use either end. This has a ball end used for getting in at certain angles, depending on what you're working around. This here is an adjustable wrench, and basically, big thing, you just want to watch your pinch points on these. There is some moving parts. Really not a dangerous tool though. The big thing with an adjustable wrench is you want to make sure you use it properly. And to do so, if I'm going to tighten this bolt, I want to tighten it this way when I tighten it, all the force is going to be put on this, the jaw on this side. Flip this over to loosen it up, all the torque will be put on the back side of the jaw there. And then with these, basically all we have is your standard and metric hand wrench. This one, standard is measured, this one's the standard, measured in fractions of an inch. I don't know if you can see here, this is a 1/2 inch. And this is an 11 millimeter metric wrench. They look almost the same in size to the naked eye, but the big thing you want to take notice here is make sure you use these standard wrench for a standard nut or bolt, and a metric wrench for a metric nut or bolt. If you're using the wrong one, you can round off a bolt, and then it makes them very difficult to get apart. That's pretty much all for wrenches. Screwdrivers, basically these are pretty safe tools. The two things I'm going to mention is do not use these as chisels. That's not what they're designed for. Some of these have hardened heads and they will break off. And the other thing is when you're loosening or tightening a screw, make sure you do apply downward force, because if you don't have enough force, you can just strip the inside of your screw. So that's about it for wrenches and screwdrivers.
Just remember, always use safety in the shop and wherever you are working. Be mindful of yourself and the people around you. Know the materials you're working with and use the proper tools for that job. You just don't want to be mixing tools with different things and try to cause damage and put yourself and other people at risk. So always be safe and mindful of others.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Hello, I'm Zach Grimes. And I'm Alex Payne. We're going to show you a little bit about sheet metal safety and cutting utensils. Alright, so the first thing that you want to know if you're using any kind of cutting is you need to have Z87 approved safety glasses. They are Z87 approved because they have side protection, not just front protection.
Also, you want to make sure you have on gloves when working with sheet metal because the edges can be very sharp and they will cut you.
Alright, so we'll just go through some of the tools here first off. Your first thing is tin snips. And we have two different sizes here. We've got some bigger ones for cutting bigger, thicker metal, and we got some smaller ones that you need to make some smaller, more intricate cuts. But I'll show you how these work real quick. Put them down like that. Just make your cut like that, just like scissors. And then, like I said, these ones are for smaller, more intricate cuts. Like that.
And then we got aviation snips. These are used for the same thing, but they're spring loaded. And so they're used the same way. Just take them, and they're a little easier to cut with. Since they're spring loaded, they open back up on their own. And you can do a little more intricate cuts with these also. And then when you're done with these, this little lock right here, just slide that up onto that screw, and it stays shut for you.
Okay, and then like we mentioned earlier, there's going to be sharp edges from the cuts, so you want to use a file to get the burrs off the edges, like such. That just keeps you from getting cut. Alright, the next thing we have here is a utility knife. You might have used it to cut open a box or something. You got a little slide right here, and then the blade is exposed, and so be careful on that. If you need to change the blade, take a screwdriver. Remember, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Take that out. Now I'm going to remove my glove real quick. Take the screw out, take the front cover off, and then back in here usually you'll have a couple stored for when this one gets dull, but we'll just pretend that we do. Here's a little carrier. This is the part that actually slides. It goes in there like such. And then the blade goes back inside the carrier. And it's going to sit flush against that carrier. Whoops. It can be kind of a pain, so just be patient. And then you put it back on. It'll stay. And you put your screw back in. Righty tighty.
Alright, and here we have another type of utility knife. It's a little different. It's a little smaller, and it's more of a disposable type one. As you can see right here, the blade has notches cut in it. They're pre-cut, and that's for when you need to change the blade. You just push it out to whichever one you want off. You pop this off the back here. There's a little slot cut in there, and then you just slide that on like this, and you apply some pressure, and that just push it down, and that blade will snap right off for you. Another thing that this has is when you get the blade as far out as you want it, you pull the little bottom half of the slider out like that, and it locks the blade in place for you. And then when you're done, slide that back up to unlock it, slide it all the way back down.
Well, that's about all we have for you guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.
Be safe.
Hi, this is Jake and Mike. We're here at the Institute of Applied Technology at FHSU State University, and today we're going to discuss the proper use and safety of a soldering iron and a soldering gun and extension cords. First thing we're going to talk about is safety. Safety is a must. First rule of safety, always wear your safety glasses. Make sure that they're Z87 certified so you have side coverage to your eyes. Next, soldering guns and soldering irons are extremely hot. Make sure that you never touch them. They will burn you. And look out for drips and splatter from when you're soldering. the drip and splatter of the hot molten solder can get on you or others and cause burn. Make sure you always solder in a well ventilated area. The fumes from soldering are toxic, so you don't want to be breathing that in a tight space. And do not solder on a live circuit. You can get electrocuted and or blow the circuit. And always be aware of your surroundings and make sure that you never solder near flammable material, as you can start a fire. Finally, if you don't know what you're doing when using a soldering gun or a soldering iron, just stop and go find somebody to help you.
As Jake mentioned, when you're working with soldering gun and iron, you might need an extension cord. If you're working with it and it does not reach, stop what you're doing, put it down, and get an extension cord. When you have an extension cord, make sure that the extension cord is out of foot traffic. You don't want to fall and cause yourself injury, and also damage the cord. Make sure that the cord doesn't get crimped. Also, make sure that there's not too many cords attached to one circuit or you're going to overload it. When using an extension cord, never plug in the extension cord into another extension cord. Just get a longer one if you need to. Also, do not plug in an extension cord into a power strip. That's also dangerous. That's it for today.
Thanks for listening, and solder safely.
One.
I'm Ethan Cox.
And I'm Daniel Boone.
Before we start the safety demonstration, I want to say that make sure that you have your GA7 safety glasses on. Today we're going to talk about different types of pliers that you'll be using in your shop. To start off with, we have our slip joint pliers here, which is pretty much the most general type of pliers you're going to use. Move on here to the alignment pliers. They're pretty much just like the slip joint pliers, except on the side here they have sharp edges so that you can cut wire with. You have needle nose, which is for pretty much the same thing as your slip joint, but to reach harder, more narrow spaces. Also, this set has a pair of the sharp ends on them to cut wire as well. We have the tongue and groove pliers. These are adjustable for different sizes of pipe fittings or nuts. Slip it in here just like so. And there you are.
And here we've got some locking pliers. Most people call them vice grips. You've got your adjusted knob right here to whatever size nut you got, and then you can adjust it. And if I can drop it here, then you can lock it down. And then if you want to release it, there's a release knob here. Pinch that in, lets it go. That's your locking pliers. Then we've got side cutters here for cutting wire. If you're doing electrical work, you can take your wire, cut it real easy. Make sure you don't get your fingers in there. You'll cut yourself pretty easy. Then we've got our wire strippers here and crimper combo. You've got your wire strippers here where you stick your wire in there and strip it. Give you a demonstration real quick on that. You got to find the right size hole. If I get the right one. And then strips your wire back. And then if you have wire crimps, the little plastic crimps, you can get those and it'll crimp it on there for you on the ends here. And that's all we've got for pliers. Thank you.